The most accurate rifle in the world is only as accurate as the shooter pulling the trigger. Proficient shooters, regardless if they are hunters or target shooters, are not born. They are created from training and stay that way through continued practice. In all my years in the firearms and shooting industry, I've yet to find a better shooting and hunter training experience than awaits the shooter visiting the FTW Ranch SAAM shooting school, located in the hill country of Texas. And the man behind the concept, construction, and curriculum of this now internationally recognized hunter training facility is my very good friend, Tim Fallon, one of my favorite people in the entire shooting industry. This week, we pull back the curtains on the finest shooter and hunter training program to be found anywhere as we visit with FTW Ranch owner and SAAM instructor, Tim Fallon. This podcast is brought to you by Remington Firearms. For more information on the new era of Remington, visit our site at remarms.com. Tim, today your FTW Ranch seems to be a second home for me, and I know a hell of a lot of accomplished shooters. Not suggesting I'm one of them, but a lot of accomplished shooters. You know, I think I want to really make sure that people understand it's FTW Ranch, SAAM Safari, SAAM Precision, and that's SAAM.
Correct.
What is that? How did you come up with that name? You know, people say SAAM. Is that a guy? What?
Yeah. Well, the FTW part was easy. That's Fallon Training Worldwide or Fallon Trophy Whitetail, depending on what we're doing at the time. And then SAAM,
I could probably think of a lot of other things.
There's a few other there's a few other meanings too. We won't go there today. And then the SAAM is Sportsman's All-Weather All-Terrain Marksmanship. So it's an acronym we just came up with that stuck and works.
Okay. You know, we met first, I think, almost 20 years ago. I hate to say it, but it's been a while. You had brown hair by then, and I weighed 50 pounds less. So, but I remember when I first went there, it was kind of interesting because I hadn't shot or hunted for years. I did when I was a kid. Hadn't for a long time, and decided that's something I wanted to do again. And you know, you get a lot smarter as you get a little bit older. So I thought I probably should learn how to do this properly instead of doing something where I said, yeah, it's about 200 yards, so I should shoot 6 inches over the heart. You know.
Right.
And so I went there, and I'm pretty sure, I don't remember exactly when, but it was close to 20 years, maybe 18 years ago. But the reality is, I learned so much, and but at the same time, at the time, I remember thinking, boy, I don't know, I really respect this guy for doing this because this is out in the middle of nowhere. You'd invested a lot, and there didn't seem to be many people. But you stuck with it for years and years and years, and today I think it's difficult for a lot of people to even get a time to go.
Yeah, well, we're very blessed in that respect. But Ken, you know, when I bought the ranch in '96, the goal was to have a hunter training program. I'd done a lot of research. Of course, there wasn't much of an internet back then, but I was already hunting around the world myself, and I thought, you know, I'd seen some horrific things from other hunters, and even a few myself. We could all use some training. So, but there was a huge infrastructure to build, the ranges, and of course we have quite an animal system. You know, we focus on endangered or extinct animals where they're indigenous from around the ranch. To have two income streams, you know, not just the training, but it's a livestock facility as well. But it's a big, and these animals are running around 12,000 crazy acres. But yeah, it took a while. So we started the first course in '05, and then it really took off in '06. We had 8 courses. '07 we had 15, and then it just grew from there. Today we're running 44 to 45 weeks a year.
Yeah, big difference from 8 to 45.
Yeah.
And included in that, though, you've got a large military presence, too.
We do. That started occurring in about 2008. We had a visitation from some special folks. And they really liked it because the snipers don't have to ever shoot on the same range twice, which is nice. Get different winds, different environments, different angles, etc. And so it's kind of like, remember the movie The Field of Dreams? Build it and they'll
Yep.
come? Yeah. Well, we started building and they just kept coming and keep coming, yeah. So it's about 12 to 15 weeks of our year is Tier 1 military sniper training. And not just sniper training, they do other programs there as well. And the military likes it a lot because when the guys get there, they're there. They don't have to go to town for dinner or lodging or anything else. They get once they arrive, they have everything they need.
Well, they can spend time at the barn. They don't have to drive anywhere.
That's right.
and I've been there, and I know a lot of them, and that's exactly what they do.
That's right.
I mean, honestly, they have a good time.
Yep.
At its core, well, look, you mentioned 12,000 acres. So I've been there, as you well know, often.
Many times.
Maybe my wife says too many times, but I'm going again this week, I think. But it's the whole thing. You said 12,000 acres, but I've heard a lot of people talk and say, well, I would never hunt in a high fence. This is the real snobs, I would never hunt in a high fence. I'm telling you, 12,000 acres of high fence, who cares? I mean, it's such rugged country. You never see the fences unless you're right on top of them. And it's look, to me, I think the hunting is no different than being out in the wild with no fences.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that. We get a lot of, some very accomplished hunters and a lot of people, the Weatherby Award and the Shakar Awards and, those sort of things, Conklin Awards, and they would never hunt under a high fence. After about 2 or 3 days, they'd look around and go, this is anything but high fence. But what I get a kick out of is when people say that, but yet it's okay to go to Santa Rosa Island and hunt elk and mule deer with the largest fence in human history called the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah, it's true. Look, yeah. I was talking, who the heck, I don't remember. It was last week, our last podcast. We were talking a little bit, not so much about high fences, but the different perception because, as you know, I was at fishing at Langara Lodge.
Right.
This is a plug for Langara that I didn't mean to put in, but that's okay. Because you and I were going to go a year ago before COVID. Right. Anyhow, I was fishing there, and the conversation around dinner came up, somehow about hunting. And there was one woman that she was kind of not such a fan of it. And because I mentioned conservation, and she said, well, how can hunting be conservation? And I said, you obviously don't think so much of hunters. She said, well, not so much. I said, so you think it's kind of cool that you can fight a salmon for 45 minutes with a hook in its mouth and then beat it over the head to kill it, and that's okay? That's better than maybe me shooting a deer through the heart and having it drop in like a second? So, that's a whole different story, but it's, perception is reality for different people. So during the hunter precision and the hunter SAAM, what kind of things do you teach them?
Well, it's
the safari.
Safari. No, I know what you meant.
But these people on the radio didn't.
Oh, good point. It's a crawl, walk, run process. So we start out. Everybody gets in the first evening, relaxes, has a few drinks, has a nice dinner. We do an in-brief that evening, and then the next morning we start into class. And we kind of go through the basics. So what our goal there is to get everybody on the same sheet of music. What's an MOA? What's a mill? What's a wind effect, et cetera, et cetera. Because we get everything from people that have never shot a gun before to some of the most experienced hunters in the world. And it's good for everybody to hear the same thing. I cannot tell you the number of times I've had a person come through and like their third or fourth or fifth trip, don't make me sit through class. I said, I promise you, if you don't come out of that class learning at least 3 new things this time, then I'll promise never to make you sit through class again. And it's never failed. They go, you didn't teach that last time. No, we did teach that last time. You just didn't retain it.
You didn't hear it.
Yeah, you didn't hear it. So we get everybody on the same sheet of music. Then we show everybody a way to clean a gun. Everything's a way at our ranch. There's not any the way to do something. That's ridiculous. There's lots of ways to do it. But it works well for us. So we show them a way to clean a gun. Then we go down and teach the principles of marksmanship, body position, building a good house. And we start out in the prone, unless you can't shoot prone. So then we have benches for those folks that might be physically handicapped.
Or guys like me that are really lazy.
Just old and fat. I don't know. I didn't mean no.
Hey, look, I can go prone when I'm hunting.
Yes, you can.
I don't have to go prone out
I've
there.
seen you do it, yes. So no, and then-
Actually, you said you've seen me do it. Just is this is completely different, but again, people are listening. You and I have hunted a few places too. We'll
Yes.
get to that in a minute.
yes, we have, yes, and had a fabulous time. No, and then we go and we work on the zeros. People start shooting at that point after we go through the principles. We let them do some dry fires first, then we start shooting and just tightening up their 100-yard zero group typically. Now, even on the safari course, we start out with medium caliber rifles. So we're not going to start on morning of day one shooting big bore guns, and by the end of day four, they're now they've got a flinch and developed all kinds of issues. So it's crawl, walk, run. And our belief is you can't shoot a big bore gun accurately unless you can shoot a medium cal gun accurately, because it's all the same principles. So then, as you know, by the afternoon of day one, typically they're pinging steel, and then we have lunch, and then after that we go out and reinforce everything they just learned that morning. But now you're doing it firing live at steel plates out to 300 and 400 and 500 yards. Not promoting we shoot animals at that distance, but look, if you're going on a sheep hunt, you could have a shot at 400 yards. You better be practicing at 600 or 700 yards.
Yeah, but look, Tim, even if you're doing whitetail and you've got a 200-yard shot, if you feel pretty comfortable at 500 yards,
Yep.
a 200-yard shot's pretty damn easy.
It gets pretty
You know,
easy.
I
It's a
mean,
confidence
And
builder.
exactly, that's what I was going to say. It's a confidence thing, and
Right.
and to me, shooting is a large part of it is confidence.
It is.
If you've got the confidence that you know what you're doing, the shot is just secondary.
Well, one of our objectives, as you well know, is to teach people the shots they shouldn't take. So our philosophy is if you look through the scope and you're not sure, don't shoot. It's okay. It's called hunting, not hope I hit it. And so, people will learn what shots they should and should not make. And that's not our call to make for them. They make that themselves. And it's a bit of a humbling process and confidence at the same time. You're exactly right.
Well, yeah, it's humbling. It's amazing to me to come out there and see people literally that have never shot, because I've seen this, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, the new hunters program, that in the first day they're shooting at 600-700 yards.
Yep.
Which,
By the end of the
which
day,
is
yeah.
pretty amazing to me.
It is. It is.
You mentioned something a little while ago that is interesting, and to my chagrin, I understand it, and that is a way, but one of the things that you are, and FTW is, I know for sure, is you're not married to any brands.
No,
And,
we're completely geared
so you
neutral.
can understand how that pisses me off. But we're good friends. We hunt together, but you're not married to my brand. But I respect it and understand.
Yeah,
it too.
we really have to be. People bring in some really good gear, some really not so good gear, and a guy can't walk in and we tell him, "Oh, by the way, you're not shooting very good stuff." Well, that's not the right way to do it. And we, if it works, we love it. So.
How often do people bring gear that they leave with something different?
About 20% of the time. When typically 10 to 15% of the guns that come to the ranch go to our gunsmith afterwards and then get shipped back to the client. It's things like muzzle brakes, trigger work, that sort of thing. Because we actually fit the gun to every shooter, fit
Right.
their gun to their shooter. And they, for instance, the cheek pad, we do that because we don't want you using neck muscles trying to get good sight alignment. So it's very important.
How many people do you see that think they can buy their way to good shooting? Meaning that they don't take lessons, they don't learn how to shoot, but they spend $10,000 on a new custom gun that's obviously going to drop anything they want from any distance.
We see that quite often. It's unfortunate too.
Yeah, but if you see that, that means at least they're coming to your place
Right.
to learn how to do it.
Right,
But they may have had that same gun for a year, a couple of years.
right.
Maybe it took a couple of big misses for them to recognize.
Well, and more often than not, we get a lot of equipment, people bring equipment that they don't realize how well that equipment can work. They soon do when they're at the ranch, of course. It's nice to see them really have confidence in what they bought. Now, conversely, we get a lot of people that call and say, well, hey, what do you think about this gun before I come? And our first answer is, don't buy a thing. Just come and use our guns.
Yeah.
Because all the makers keep guns at our place. They like the way we teach and what we teach. And, we have a lot of Remingtons and a lot of other guns, too. But we'd rather them try different things in different scopes. More importantly, Not more importantly, but just as importantly, the scopes are as big a part of it as the gun itself.
True, but I think the biggest part of it is the ammunition.
Oh, that's a huge factor, no doubt, because every gun's different.
Yeah, we talked about this last week, but I mean, you and I have talked about it before. And even when I go out there, you know, I think the last time I was out, I was looking at I bought a new 6.5 Creedmoor, and I was fooling around, and you find one ammunition that just works. And I think that's one of the things people don't realize.
Right.
You know, you see this people go out to, you know, hunting season comes along, and they're out. I've seen all kinds of things. They're zeroing their gun, and they make one shot, and they hit where they want, and they go, okay, that's it, I'm good.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But I mean, look, I've shot, and different ammo is like 2 or 3 minute difference,
Right.
which is a huge amount. So I think a lot of people don't understand that, you know, even from a production standpoint, we can make two guns exactly the same. We stress them the same. We do everything exactly the same. And one could use a Remington ammo, and another one use a Hornady.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think people just assume that all ammunition is the same. So
No, that's true. And we ask people, you know, we ask them to bring their own ammo. We want them to bring their hunting ammo. Don't bring cheap ammo and get good data on your gun and your scope and your bullet and then go off and buy something else. That's silly. Bring your hunting ammo. I know it's expensive, but before you do so, make sure your gun likes it.
well, but I mean, people that I've never understood the concept of your, you know, to me, because I said this earlier, confidence plays a big role. So if you're shooting your shitty ammo at 3 minutes, then how can that do anything for your confidence? you know,
Going backwards.
you're going backwards, exactly. So I know it's expensive, but to me it makes sense to use the same ammo to shoot with on a regular basis.
Sure it does, absolutely.
You know, that's just me. I know I've been going there personally, but also the company has been, or I've taken a number of people. I think that FTW has become, an extension of a lot of companies' R&D labs, and I think that's a real testament to you and the team, because I know people go there on a regular basis.
Yep, I do. It's a great place for things like writers' events or product introductions or product testing, and yeah, we do. That's a big part of our year now. That's probably 8 or 10 weeks of our year is corporate, what we call corporate work, which is either development or product launches or marketing sort of thing.
You know, myself and our head of R&D, well, actually, he's our head engineer, were there
Just recently.
Yep. And we weren't really there to test our own product. we were there testing everybody else's.
Yep, what works and what doesn't.
What works and what doesn't, and why it works, and I think it's of value, and I know a lot of other people do the same. Look, to me, one of the great things and the reason that I've gone back is not my love of you. I like the guys
really?
too.
Man.
I mean, look, sort of is.
I'm kind of hurt, Kenneth.
Well, I can understand that. But, one person doesn't make anything. You got a great team. The instructors are fantastic. Everybody there. And, you fall into, as you well know, I've kind of fallen into a couple of guys that take me everywhere.
Yeah.
But how did you come up with them and kind of what keeps them going and coming back for so long?
Well, that's a really good question.
Because I'm willing to bet you're not that easy a guy to work with.
Well, there's some general rules in our business. First of all, if you're not having fun doing this, you're screwing it up. Because the first thing that happens is people come and they're nervous. They don't want to embarrass themselves. They're apprehensive. They don't want to admit that maybe they're not as good a shooter as they think they are. And we keep it completely relaxed and fun, no pressure. But back to the instructor side, it takes the whole team, you're right, to make it work. But the instructor and the assistant instructor, there's an instructor team with every group, a group of 6 maximum, and 6 students. And what happens is we've interviewed a lot of prior snipers to be instructors, and it's a very low percentage of success. And I'll tell you why. Not that they're not good shooters, and maybe not that they might even be a good teacher, but they just don't enjoy people that much. And our goal is you have to really like people. You want to help people. And it takes an extreme amount of patience levels. So it takes a special guy.
So you're saying I can't ever be an instructor?
Ken, I don't think I would hire you to be an instructor.
I'm crushed.
I love you, buddy, but no, I don't think it'd work out. No, they ballistically have to be sound. They have to be good shooters, but most importantly, they have to be humble. And this is not about us when people get there. You've never heard me tell a hunting story. That's my business, my story. Sure, I got trophies all over the lodge, but it's about them. So I'd rather hear about their deer story or their elk story or their Cape buffalo story or whatever. It's about them, and that's hard for some people to do.
I think that's hard for a lot of people to do. I've seen a number of the instructors there, and they're great guys. I've hunted with them and really enjoy them. We have a lot of good laughs. I've had a lot of good laughs around the bar at night at FTW, but out in the field as well. They're super good guys, and I can understand. It's interesting that you said that, because one of the things that we have tried to hire a lot of different military personnel. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of them work out.
No.
And I don't know, I've never really understood why that is. We see some of them, the higher ranking ones, they seem to, and this is not, I love the military guys, but a lot of the higher ranking ones that we've hired over the years, they're so used to just giving a whole team beneath them orders. And then the lower ranking ones seem to want somebody to always tell them what to do. So it's a real challenge for a lot of these guys once they get out into the civilian world.
It is. Well, and especially coming from the sniper world, where by nature you tend to be pretty introverted. You're not an outgoing people person. That's not your typical
I could
sniper.
do that.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't be an instructor,
but it's by nature just not their nature, if you know what I mean. So it does take a special person. And now look, just because you're a good sniper doesn't make you a good instructor, but you don't also have to be a prior sniper to be an instructor at our place. Like Efren's now worked his way up to full instructor status, but he's spent 10 years doing it.
Yeah, good for F.
Yeah. I mean, he's got his PhD in training because he's been doing it every week for the last 10 years. And he's a good instructor, and he loves people.
Yeah, and he can spot animals pretty well,
and he's
too.
a pretty darn good spotter.
Yeah, no, that's good. One of the things that I've always been interested in coming out there is, well, there's a number of things. I've heard you say this many times. First of all, you talk about the breeding, but one of the things, and I've used this, I'll give you credit in public so that everybody can hear, that there's no manual for this type of thing. And you can say that with a lot of things. So you started this, you had this dream, and there was no manual how to do it. Mm-hmm. And your breeding, I know that's really true on that, because your breeding program. So tell me a little bit about your breeding.
Well,
or go back a little bit to what it used to be and what it is today, and why? Because it's changed.
Yeah, it has changed. We've evolved. As you say, there's no book you can buy to learn how to do this. But we focus on animals that are no longer huntable or extinct where they're indigenous from, but they have to do well in our rugged mountains, because usually it's 12,000 acres of nothing but rugged mountains. So Markhor do well. Things like Trans-Caspian Urials do well, Nubian Ibex do well, Iranian red sheep, those sorts of things, Chinese blue sheep, etc. But those animals are no longer huntable. So,
when you say no longer huntable,
in their homelands,
homelands.
So, for a lot of reasons, mostly because those homelands didn't have a hunting program where conservation occurred, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, they're shot out.
Right, they're just poached out because the animal has no value.
Kind of like our trip to Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah, pretty close.
Yep.
Yeah, about the same thing. So we used to try to raise them, let them do their thing on the 12,000 acres. We've since learned of some of these species, like the Markhor and the Nubian Ibex, We've had to capture the females back out of the wild and put them into a breeding pen situation with a male breeder. And then we raise the offspring to 2 or 3 years old, and then we release them to the wild. The reason is these animals are dealing with predators here in Texas that they wouldn't have in their homelands. So any of the baby goat species, for instance, Nubian ibex, markhor, etc., for the first 3 months of their life, they run around bleating all the time for mom. Well, hello, dinner bell for a coyote and a bobcat and a mountain lion. So our success of birth to survival rate has quadrupled. It's exploded compared to what it used to be in the wild. So that's part of the nuances you learn. Only took me 18 years to figure that one out. Yeah. Apparently I'm not very bright.
Or a fast learner.
Yeah, apparently not.
But the other thing, too, I remember years ago, there was a hell of a lot more females.
Yes.
Than there is today.
Right.
So I think you've cut that back, too.
Well, Mother Nature did that. So part of the problem, a pack of coyotes just loves to find a mother who's in the birthing process, because there goes the mother and the baby. So
right.
They don't just kill babies; they kill mature adults too.
They're hungry.
Yep, they're hungry.
No, it's so. I mean, I believe that, if I'm not mistaken, you sell a lot of these too. They're not all kept for hunting.
We do. That's the fun part about the program. We actually trade in and out of the zoo industry. So the zoos are smarter today than they were 50 years ago. Now they're actually changing genetics in their own facility a lot. They used to be very protective and no, I don't want to trade with another zoo. And what they did was they bred down the animals. So over the years they've learned. So a lot of the new inventory we'll buy might have come out of a zoo, and a lot of the females and the young ones that we sell are going to go back into what we call the zoo circuit, which means it might go to a holding area for a year or two, and then there's there's 4 or 5 guys around the country that actually make a living selling to zoos and buying from zoos. So it's a wonderful program.
There's another program that I'm willing to bet a lot of people don't even realize, and that is that you can go out and buy whitetail males,
Mm-hmm.
People don't realize. They think they're just out there and they magically showed up. But,
right.
But there are breeders, and I think we both know one of them locally.
Yep.
So I had no idea personally. I sort of did, but, tell us about that a little bit.
Well, it's part of an industry in Texas. As they say, thank God for Texas. But a lot of these species would be gone from the earth were it not for Texas. The scimitar horned oryx, the Eld's deer, these lots of animals around the world that would be extinct. And it's the what we call the exotic business, if you will. And I'll throw whitetail in that. It's about a $4 billion industry in Texas. It's a huge business.
Wow.
So you'll have guys that want to breed whitetails to try to improve their genetics and so forth. You have to have a license through the state, and as you should. Texas considers whitetail its property because they're indigenous to Texas. So these guys put a lot of money and time and effort into, they keep good records. They'll breed this male with these 5 females, and let's see what the offspring looks like in 3 years. So it's not a turn switch and you got a program going. It takes years to develop the right genetics. And then there's ranches that, like, for instance, every other year we'll bring in 4 or 5 bucks, put a tag in their ear, and just let them run around the ranch, changing the gene pool of the herd. It's a really interesting program. Yeah.
Well, I did, but I'm willing to bet a lot of people didn't. So speaking about conservation, it hasn't been terribly long ago that you became, I think, the president of the Dallas Safari Club Foundation.
I did, yes, sir.
And we all know that that's big conservation. So what about that?
I love it. Absolutely. I'm having the time of my life.
It gets you off the ranch.
Well, sometimes that's a little problematic, but no, I'm enjoying it, having a great time with it, meeting some amazing people, and I'm getting to see the conservation side of things that I never would have been able to see. I mean, I understand it. I've traveled the world hunting and know the importance of hunting to conserve animals, but to see the underlying efforts and programs in place from someone like a Dallas Safari Club that really, it walks the walk and talks the talk. It is funding wonderful programs, anti-poaching programs, conservation programs, which are under severe threat. People don't realize, as you urbanize the world, people don't understand why you need to hunt. And so, the amount of programs and money that Dallas Safari Club puts into that educating people and giving outfitters that might have 1 million acres in a country in Africa that's fighting, local poachers is just a terrible thing. So we fund a lot of that, and
It's one of the things that I've talked about openly for years now. Conservation. But if you talk to a non-hunter about the value of conservation and how the hunting community supports it, they look at you like a deer in the headlights.
Right.
It's like, yeah, how can hunting support that?
Right.
And I talked to Corey last week, so I think the message, it's a difficult one to get out, but if you talk to people that are willing to listen,
Right.
they come away with a completely different thing. I mentioned the woman at Langaro when I was talking about hunting, and I told her, I said, look, you have no idea. I said, we spend millions of dollars a year, the hunters, that go into conservation. And I listed some of the things, and to her credit, she said, I had no idea. But there's some that you're just never going to get turning that corner.
No.
But you do some other pretty cool things there. It's not just conservation. You're supportive of injured PHs,
Yep.
Their families, etc.
Yep. Yeah, it's a wonderful organization. I'm like I say, I'm having the time of my life. I'm a big fan of the education process. There's a lot of wonderful organizations out there that we support that actually go to the schools, teach kids how to boat and how to fish and how to shoot an bow and arrow, and maybe do some shooting like the 4-H clubs. Just a wonderful program to keep the hunting spirit alive, which is, like I say, under severe attack right now, shamefully.
Well, I think it's under severe attack from some, but I'm not sure, because I also think that there's been a resurgence of younger people that are starting to look at hunting.
There is.
And I think a combination of COVID, because people think that food, meat magically grows and it shows up on their shelf in the grocery store. And I think they've kind of gone away from understanding how it gets there. But there was a fairly significant shortage of meat and prices of meat. So I know, and I think it was Georgia, they had over in excess of 1 million, my numbers might be wrong, but they had a tremendous number of new hunting licenses during turkey season last year. So I think hunting itself is up substantially.
I think you're right. I think COVID, in my mind, there's only two good things came out of COVID. And one of them is 8 million new gun owners, and the other one's several million new hunters. Because I think a lot of people were shocked. And I wonder if I could actually feed my family if this really went badly, worse than it did. And to that end, we've got some new programs at the ranch.
I was going to ask you about that one.
Well, and in great part to you, Ken. We were, of course, where all genius things happen at the FTW at the bar one night, talking about, why don't we have a new hunter program for someone that is curious but afraid to start? And so, for instance, there's lots of obstacles to getting started hunting. Getting started with the wrong people could be a big one. And then, if somebody says, gee, I'm going to go supply my own wholesome, healthy meat and go out and shoot a deer, like my grandpa used to do, and you live in New York City, where in the world, who would you call? How do you even get started? And what if they've never shot a gun?
Yeah, I think that's I think that is the case with so many things. It's people don't know where to go, but there's also there's that fear that people go, I have no idea who to contact, and I'm really nervous about going and buying a gun. So I think that happens all over the place.
Yeah. Well, we've enjoyed the new hunter program that we've had now. This year, this is our first year, and by the end of the year, we'll have had 8 classes. It's been phenomenal.
I know you
successful.
only planned to have 1, didn't you?
Yeah, we did, by popular demand. Yeah. And what's really fun about it is half the students are experienced hunters. But you'd be amazed how many people have been to Africa 4 times and never gutted an animal, never caped it, never deboned it, they don't know how to cook it. And so, all that's done for them typically on those bigger hunts. And so it's been great fun that actually we bring in a professional wild game chef, and of course Larry comes in and shows them how to, do a necropsy, which is kind of grotesque, but show them how to investigate the intestines to what this animal's been eating, which tells you where it's living. And then we take them in the field and show them how to track and basically investigate where the animal's living, and then you know how to hunt it. So it's great fun.
Well, look, I was there for the first one. I think it's
Yep.
fantastic. My future daughter-in-law was there. She'd never hunted before.
Yep.
And right afterwards, she goes, "Well, when can we go to Africa?" Well, I told her just as soon as you can write the check.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, wonderful gal too. She had a lot of fun.
she had a lot of fun, but I mean, I think more importantly is that she's now a hunter, and she will become, a more regular hunter.
Right.
And I think that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of hunting, I know that you're a prolific hunter. You've hunted all over the world. Continue to do so. I think you're fortunate. You've got a business that the profit goes to hunting, so it seems to work out pretty well. Come back into the ranch and into hunting. So what's still on your bucket list?
Oh, Lord, Ken, there's a bunch of them. Well, for instance, I leave October 1 for Zambia, and for one animal. I'm to that point in my hunting career because I'm kind of a collector, as you know, and I'm going after a yellowback diker. It's a silly 100-pound diker from Africa, and that's the only place you can bring them home now, export it.
Really?
Yeah. Cameroon has shut off the exportation. CAR we can't even go to. Congo maybe, but there's good news. There's lots of new countries opening up too. Like Congo is now open, full-fledged open. So a lot of these countries 20 years ago you wouldn't even consider going hunting in are now hunting and have a heck of a program. Very successful.
We talked a little while ago, and I think it was at the DSC Gala. I'm pretty sure. Where it might have been, it could have been the ranch as well. What about Canadian wolf? It was at the DSC
It was.
auction.
Yep. Oh yeah, those wolf hunts are very popular. I'd love to go do it.
Okay, I've got one planned.
Okay.
Well, my niece and her husband, I guess, lack of a better word, they live in the mountains, and there's wolf all around.
Yeah.
She said, and they can host us as being once a year. Once every 2 years they can host people.
Really?
Yeah, it's a program. I don't even know what it is, but they checked with their best buddy, the game warden, and he explained it to them. So every second year they can host people. So since there's 2 of them, they could host 2 of us.
Well, it's funny. I've had 11 wolf tags and never killed one yet. In North America, I've killed 2 in Mongolia,
Right.
but yeah, I've had 11 tags and never got one yet.
Well, I'm told they're all around their drill sites. So because both of them are in the oil industry.
Okay. It wouldn't surprise me. Canada's got a lot of wolves. But, Canada's smart. They've been hunting them for years. They've never stopped hunting them. Like here in the U.S., when we reintroduced them, we were supposed to start hunting them when they attained a manageable population. Of course, court orders, the emotions.
And now they're a big problem again.
It was a huge problem. Like the successful calving rate of a moose in Montana is 10%. That's not sustainable.
What about the cattle in Montana? The moose is one thing, but what about the cattle in Montana?
Livestock in general.
These people, that's their livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
People get all pissed off that they kill a wolf, but that wolf is also taking money right out of their pocket day after day after day.
Yep.
And if it goes untouched, nothing happens.
Right.
It'll get worse and worse and worse.
Yep.
I think Canada has done a great program, done a pretty good program. We talked about this last week, I think it was, that Canada, because this is an interesting thing that you're well aware of, it's okay to shoot a polar bear in Canada. You can get a tag to shoot a polar bear, but the United States will not allow you to import it.
Nope.
Which I don't get.
I don't get it either. It's absolutely, I don't see that in our Constitution anywhere.
It's not even forget the Constitution. It's not even common sense.
No, it's not. And the Canadians know how many polar bears they have. They know the regions they're in. They give the permits to the local Inuits to manage. They can shoot the bear themselves, or they can sell it to somebody to come hunt it. And so we're going to a country and legally hunting something, but not allowed to bring it back because our government doesn't think it's right. What are they doing? Telling the Canadians they're stupid? Apparently they are.
Yeah, well,
that's basically what they're doing.
Yep. Well,
it's absolutely ridiculous.
I'm a Canuck, so
yeah. Well,
You know,
Well, the same's true in Africa and everywhere.
Yes, I know.
You know, one of the funniest, you've seen it at the lodge. One of the funniest pictures I have is this picture of this tribal unit in Zimbabwe, and they're having a meeting about how many whitetails should be hunted in the U.S. next year.
yeah.
That's how ridiculous that is.
We'll have to ask Mr. Whitetail what he thinks about that.
Absolutely.
So look, Tim, you know, one of the big things is what's your favorite thing about FTW and working there and owning it, etc., other than going hunting? No, you obviously wouldn't do that unless you've got a passion for training.
Right. Ken, what drives me and the whole team actually is changing people's lives. And I know that sounds really corny, but it's not. They come here to the ranch to learn how to shoot, learn how to hunt, be a better hunter. And they leave with confidence, and we get hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of pictures of their successful hunts after they graduate the ranch for years. I still get pictures from a guy that graduated 10 years ago.
Has he been back?
Yeah, he has, actually.
Okay, good.
But it's just so rewarding to have people come through and know that you made an impact in the world. So we also I think we help keep the hunting industry grounded. We don't do social media and any of that. It's a very private place. But we make people, help them understand it's not okay to wound an animal. It's not. And it's a hunter's job to kill the animal in the first shot, period. If you didn't do it, you blew it. Now you got to do everything you can to prevent that.
Yeah.
And so it's fun to make an impact in the industry and in people's lives, and they come away happier and better off for coming to the school.
Well, I think that's a big deal. Wounding an animal is terrible. We've all done it.
Yeah, terrible.
And it's terrible. Look, I still feel not terrible, but it doesn't matter. A clean kill still bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, me personally, and there's very few people that I know that hunt that don't have some pretty emotional moments when they kill something.
Absolutely.
And wounding something is just like the worst thing. I still think of the times that I've wounded something. It's not nice.
Oh, I do too. It haunts me forever.
Yeah.
And I've never not shed a tear on any animal I've ever killed. You say a little prayer of thanks, and
Yeah, no, I agree.
it's important.
No, I'm not a baby like you, so I don't have tears running down my eyes. But no, but it's emotional. It really is.
And
I think
just
everybody,
took a life. Yeah.
everybody I know, every serious hunter I know, we've seen some that are just could care less, but I don't even consider them real hunters.
No.
There is an emotional part of the thing. So one of the things, I guess this is with all kinds of things, to me, people are not born a great shooter. And they're made. They're made to be a great shooter. The more they do it, the better they become. And the better they become, the more joy I think they get out of hunting. And I think you guys are the place that does it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
Look, I haven't been to a bunch of places, but I've seen a lot of people come through FTW, and I've seen them become fabulous shooters in the short time they're there. If they keep it up, they'll continue to be that. If they don't, hopefully they'll be back again. So I think you do the best job in the world. I'm still pissed that you're not more Remington centrist. But I'm okay with that.
You wouldn't love me as much if I was.
That's true.
No, it is, Ken. And to your point, even professional golfers have a coach. The problem is you can't see yourself shoot, and practice is absolutely, you have to do it. We've had one gentleman just finished his 22nd course at the ranch.
Boy.
But before every big hunt, he comes down for 3 nights and 2 days and touches back up again.
Yeah.
And these hunts are way too expensive to go there ill-prepared. That's ridiculous.
Look, that's something that's interesting, because the reality is I see people doing that all the time. They'll buy a gun, or never mind buy a gun. You know that we're working on a couple of new models, which are pretty spectacular. And people will have their old beater of a gun and spend $40,000 or $50,000 on a hunt, and take this gun that doesn't even really, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to shoot straight anymore.
Right, right.
And that's okay. Or they won't spend money to go out to FTW to learn how to shoot properly.
Right.
But it seems, and then they wonder, well, what happened on my hunt? How come I blew
Right,
it?
right.
You know.
Our typical sales cycle, you'll love this at the trade shows, is we'll meet somebody and he's looking up at the information in the booth and talking, and you can tell the look in his face like, man, I don't know. I don't want to admit I need training. I'll be fine. He comes by the next year, guaranteed, walks in the booth writing a check for a deposit on the next course.
Yeah,
because he went on the hunt and blew it.
Exactly.
I mean, and we've all done it. I mean, none of us are exempt.
Well, you see, look, I see it on all kinds of different things. It doesn't matter what it is. People think they can buy their way into success.
Mm-hmm.
They buy a better gun. They buy a faster car. Whatever it does, but they don't want to take the time to learn how to do something properly.
Right.
So personally, I'm pretty damn happy that I took the time to learn how to do something properly by going to FTW however many years ago it was. And I go there probably 2 or 3 times a year still.
Yep.
I get the occasional access, but I also go and interestingly enough, we talked about confidence. I was there, I don't know, maybe a month, 2 months ago, I guess. It's a place, as you well know, I go just to get away for
Sure.
a couple of days when I've had enough of the other nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, I was shooting my gun that I always shoot, and it was just awful. And you remember it because I was really quite pissed off. I went back and I had set I changed my cheek pad a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Went back, but as from a confidence standpoint, if I'd have gone hunting with that, I probably wouldn't. I probably would not have had a great shot.
Right.
Because A, I'd lost a little bit of confidence, but B, I needed to adjust my gun a little bit.
Right.
Went back the next time and quarter MOA.
Yep. I saw you doing a jig on the range. I remember. You
Exactly.
were very pleased with yourself. It is frustrating.
It
Sometimes
is.
you develop a little habit. You can't see yourself doing it. Next thing you know, your everything went to hell.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I can regularly shoot, let's say for argument's sake, a half MOA, which I think is decent shooting.
That's a great shot.
But all of a sudden this day turned out to be, 1, and I'm going, or 2 even. I'm going, what the hell? So anyhow, I think you guys do a great job. I'm continue to work on you, to become more Remington centrist. You'll give in someday.
That's right. Oh, Ken, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, Tim. I'm glad that you took the time to come.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much, sir. Look forward to seeing you at the
All
ranch.
right, buddy.
See ya.
I'll see you there next week.
Yes, you will. You and Dale,
This
yes?
week. You do.
Yeah, good.